Hello everyone, my name is Gianpaolo Battaglia. I'm working in the marketing team of Microsoft Cognitive Services, and with me there is Luis.
Hi, my name is Luis Cabrera. I am the principal program manager in the Cloud AI platform. It's a pleasure to be here with you today. So as Gianpaolo mentioned, we have a lot of content for you. We have some demos. It should be pretty interesting, I think. And I would like to start with a little story. So when I was a kid, I had to learn how to use MS-DOS. And I remember that my dad had an MS-DOS book, right? And I read it, and I learned the commands, and and I became proficient on it. But what was interesting is that I had to read a book. I had to read a book to learn to talk to the machine, right? Over time, go ahead. This is a picture of 10 years ago. These are my kids playing on a Surface device. Long time ago, this big tablet computer, right? And it was very interesting to see them for the first time capture, use a natural user interface, which was much easier, right? They didn't have to read a book. But I would like to say that they still had to learn to interact with the machine, right? Just like us today, we all carry a little Surface in our pockets, right? And it's easy to use, but we still have to learn to communicate to the machine. The onus has been on us as humans to communicate with the machine. What if machines could actually be the ones that have to learn to interact with us? What if they were the ones that have to learn our language? What if they understood context about what's going on as to why we may be asking a question? What if they could infer from what has happened in the past what is likely to happen in the future? It's a very exciting time that we are in. I will say that we are at the very beginning of this revolution where we can actually help our applications or systems of intelligence, as they were called yesterday, where we can create these systems of intelligence that learn to interact with the human. And I will say it's our responsibility here, really, to build these systems of intelligence, to create applications that are more humane in a way. So we are at a very special time where we can do that, thanks to AI.
Absolutely. So you might have already seen some pieces of what we intend by Microsoft AI. And I think that I like the idea of having our AI components, our platform, our capabilities, really to help people. Is amplifying human ingenuity and the ability really not to replace folks, but really to use AI into products, into service, thanks to our platform, and sometimes providing them to people to do more, even for the people not understanding or identifying that they're using AI. Sometimes when it's subtle, this is good, because the purpose is really for you to do more without the need to say, oh, this is AI, and before this is not AI, and I click on the AI thing, and then it moves. So behind AI, I like to consider that we've got intelligence. We're going to talk about, of course, cognitive services, the intelligence components, but intelligence by itself is not enough. Usually, you've got on one side the ability to have how you're going to experience this intelligence. Think about Power BI, in which you're going to have smart insights, even specific screens or specific apps in which you're going to have this AI infused into it. And on the other side, of course, usually our intelligence by itself is good, but it's usually related to a pipeline of data, of information you're going to feed, to train, to make the system learn smarter, and then having the smart insight with the experiences.
And Paulo, you're confusing me a little bit, to be honest. I know you brought a visual aid for me to understand this concept.
Yes, so this is Orlando, this is not Las Vegas, but it's the city of magic, and there are like magic castles everywhere. So I wanted to find the best analogy, so I was trying yesterday night, very late, to find a paper bag, and the only paper bag I found was this nice red bag, which is called the AI bag. So think about that as the intelligence, and we're going to do together the experience, the experiment. So the way it works, it's pretty straightforward, is that for everyone, the AI bag, also for the left. See the nice design of AI, which has been made with a very nice Sharpie marker. And so in order to have this AI bag, we are going to have experiences, but we need data. So Luis, do you have some data available?
Yeah, I have some pieces of data.
How
I can put
convenient.
data in there.
So the interesting point is that with that, technically when you do that,
But
you've got amazing experiences which are going outside. For the one on the left, I will show it, you've got 3 feathers going out. So the point is that you really need way more data to train your models and to have them being more and more accurate to have smart insights.
oh, how convenient. I have tons of data. I have data out of my ears. Let's put all that data there. And I have a little extra, okay? So we have tons of data to train a model, I guess.
So I will destroy the room and everyone will need to clean after. I think I will do that. So technically, if you do that with the data in order to have the right experiences, you do once, you've got that. But if you shuffle a little bit more, you've got a nice bowling ball going out on the floor, which gives the concept of when we're able to couple on one side the data which is going to feed and make the system being smarter to be trained and then to be tested and have the full pipeline, or then you're going to have the smart insights into specific apps or having specific triggers to launch specific alerts, think about anomaly detection on one side, or even simply to put that into apps which are already existing, you have the full experience.
All right, thank you for the visual aid, Gianpolo. That was our magic show of the day.
The only one. So when we think about AI, we're going to refer to 4 different pillars, and we're going to go through each of them. The first one is related to our agent, Cortana, the personal digital assistant which is present on the machines, on the various phones, and which is going to follow you as an individual user, as a consumer, every day and adapting to your habits. First element, the agent. The second aspect, and we talked about it also in Satya keynote, are related to these AI solutions. Think about how we're going to put the various pieces together to help you to use these end-to-end solutions. We've got accelerators, which are on our AI galleries. On the other side, we're also relying on our partner ecosystem, which we have specific vertical solutions we're going to use as end users. And Satya also presented yesterday in the keynote this AI-based solution with the Dynamics 365 AI solutions on one side, and the first one being related to customer service. So second aspect, these AI solutions. The third pillar is related to the intelligent apps. We've been, as Microsoft, using dogfooding our own AI directly into our products. Think about Office, Word, Excel, PowerPoint, Dynamics, Skype, Teams, even a good example, and I'm going to show it right now, presentation translator. How I'm going to use some of these AI components directly into the presentation, and sometimes you do not realize that, oh, this is AI infused, AI enabled, but you still provide a better experience for your users. So I'm going just to escape and go directly to my deck. And so I just added the Microsoft Garage project called Presentation Translator. And so when I go in the slideshow, I've got this thing.
Gianpolo, why don't we make it even more complicated? I know that Presentation Translator can show you what you're saying, right?
Exactly.
But why don't we have you speak French, for instance, and give the presentation in French and see if we can understand it?
So let me try that. So you see there is French, English, and basically it's going to capture what I'm saying, and I'm going to speak in French because, of course, I've got an Italian name but a French accent, and hopefully we'll be able to have the subtitles directly translated. So for the people who do not speak French, I will say very simple things. Alors maintenant, vous allez pouvoir voir la présentation sur l'écran qui va apparaître, et vous allez remarquer qu'il y a des sous-titres qui sont actuellement écrits en français et qui vont être automatiquement traduits en anglais. Ce qui est intéressant, c'est que je peux parler pendant toute l'heure en français, parce que je suis français et que j'aimerais bien avoir un café français qui est un expresso qui est toujours délicieux, mais aussi réussir à manger des croissants qui sont très très bons.
All right. Woo! All right.
It doesn't write clap, 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 but it should be. So one thing, by the way, every time I press the button of the subtitles, you've got this screen which is appearing, and this is why I think this is awesome. everyone in the room with the Live Translator app, or even by writing the code, translate.it and the code, and then you put your information, would be able to see directly on your mobile phones the translation of what I say in French or English. I could put even English to English and you could see the subtitles, but you could also decide in which language you would like to read, and among all the different languages with the translator, and you can have that up to 500 different people in the room. So technically it could work, but then I'm relying on my machine because I didn't have the microphone, so I need to speak all day long like that, and it's going to be more complex. But so you've got a little bit the idea about having these smart subtitles appearing.
So Gianpaolo, you have been talking about these 4 pillars, right? And the great thing about applications is that we at Microsoft have been working on applications and embedding AI into our applications for a long time, right? So in order for you to build applications, then we need the fourth pillar, which is a platform for you to build applications, right? So the first layer of this fourth pillar is the infrastructure, right? So we have infrastructure that can do all kinds of processing, right? Thanks to Azure, you can do training of models, any kind of model on GPUs, on field programmable gate arrays or FPGAs, and anyone can command any number of machines, and you just pay for the computation that you need, right? In the past, you needed to set up your own cluster of machines. It was very complicated. So that makes it much easier for you to create AI models, right? Now, the infrastructure is one thing, but I think on top of that, we have to have tools that allow you to create any kind of models. And this presentation is not about all those tools. There are presentations where, for instance, related to Azure Machine Learning, we are just releasing the new version of that. Actually, it was mentioned yesterday. So if you're interested in creating any kind of customized model, you should go to that presentation. Those are sets of tools that are usually geared towards professional data scientists, right? You have to know what you're doing with artificial intelligence, with machine learning models. Now, what has happened is that, as we have been playing with this over the last few years, is that companies have come to us and they have said, look, it's very nice that you have all these tools that do any kind of model, but I sell shoes, right? Or I want to create a bot to do customer support. I don't want to be a recommendations systems expert or a natural language processing expert in order to provide these capabilities to my customers, right? So that's fair. Not everyone should be a data scientist. So we created what we call cognitive services. These are services, you can think of them as APIs in the cloud, right? Where the machine learning and all the artificial intelligence is happening under the hood. But we enable you to harness the power of that, to consume that directly. So there are quite a variety of cognitive services.
And of course, in terms of other services, we're adding also bots, bot framework, in order to combine the cognitive services with these intelligent agents. So cognitive services, as Luis mentioned, is a collection of 30 different APIs and services which go in different directions. You've got from speech, you've got vision capabilities, so what's inside an image, what's inside the video, how I gather the smart insight, if there are people, how they are their emotion, also the ability to filter if the content is adult content or not adult content. Speech capabilities, second part, and we'll talk about that a little bit deeper later. Speech to text, text to speech, custom speech, recognizing who is speaking when we're speaking, recognizing people. Language capabilities, and of course, we'll talk way more about that in our demonstrations. The ability to understand what's behind texts, like what is the sentiment of this sentence, or what is the intent of what I'm saying. If I say, open the door, close the door, everyone says, okay, that someone needs to open or close the door. Yeah, they're closing the door anyway. But for the machine, they need to convert this sentence, this command, into an intent, and then to launch the method door open. And so the ability to evolve from this sentence to the intent is also one of the key language understanding capabilities. Of course, knowledge APIs in which you're going to work on creating your knowledge base, finding pattern into complex information. The last one related to search, in which we're going to leverage the power of Bing search APIs into your applications. We also have labs, cognitive services labs, which are experimental application APIs. You can test. One of them is related to gesture analysis with very interesting cameras. And so at Build Conference, so I think it was, 4 months ago? Maybe 5. We released APIs related to this layer of customization. Because sometimes you just have an image, you push a button, you've got the output, age, gender, and you've got this interesting howl.net website in which you can try to fool the bot by putting your picture and see how old you are. But we had customers saying, you know what, this is interesting, but can I bring some of the data and train the APIs to have something just for me customized? And so this is why we had all these layers of customizable APIs for vision, speech, language, knowledge, and search, in which you can bring your own pieces of data and train the systems which are available for you to have your customized image classifier, speech understanding system, language understanding, knowledge, and search capabilities. So let's talk a little bit more about language, because the purpose of the session is to talk about language and search.
I think, Gianpaolo, the easiest way for us to actually learn it is just to go in and try one of these services. So why don't we're going to do a very, very simple demo.
8.
Number 8, so that's my machine. And we're going to start from scratch. We're going to pretend that we don't know anything about any of these services, and I picked the text analytics API to kind of go from like how do you sign up for it all the way to consuming it. So this API does 3 things. It detects sentiment of an expression. It can tell you what language it's in. It can even extract the key phrases of a document, for instance, right? So let's try to actually use it. So the way that you sign up for each of these cognitive services is you can go to your Azure subscription, and in the AI and cognitive section, just like I have it right here, you can select one of these, in this case, Text Analytics API. And you usually have to give your subscription a name, so I'm going to say Ignite Text Analytics. And you select what you want to pay for. So actually, let me select a different region. I'm going to go to the East US region, let's say. And there are different pricing plans, but in all of these cases, we usually have a free tier so that you can play and learn to use the API. So I'm going to get 5,000 transactions for the next 30 days for free. And I'm going to just create, I can use an existing group. That's fine. So let's just risk a group 1. And let's pin that one to the dashboard. I confirm, yes, the terms of use, blah, blah, blah. And right now, it's going to create an instantiation of the text analytics service that I can consume, and it will give me a key. This is the key, my developer key that I can use to call the service. So I need to copy that and use it. Okay, it just finished, and you can see my keys right here in the key section, so I can actually copy it. There is also a quick start section that tells you, okay, you grab your keys, then you can make an API call. So let me do that. I really like, where did we connect? It was East US, I believe, right? So.
What's that, Luis?
That's a very good question. Actually, let me go one step back. So these are the different regions where this service can be deployed. Right now, we support 5 regions. We actually went to general availability just yesterday. The service has been in preview for a little bit of time, and now we graduated to general availability, which is very exciting. And you usually will pick the region that is closest to you in order to decrease the latency to the system, right? So, okay, so we are in Florida, so I'm going to pick the East US region. And remember, I had a key, right? So I'm going to, this API Explorer allows me to kind of just play with the API. So let's actually do a sentiment analysis, let's say. And I'm going to paste my API key here. What it's doing, it's composing an HTTP call right here, right underneath. And the format of this is such that you pass an array of documents, and then it will give you the sentiment for each of those documents. So let's say I am speaking English. I'm going to set an ID of 1. and I'm going to write a text like, I'm having a great day. I'm having a great day. John Paulo does, okay, fine. You know what?
No, it's too positive.
Too positive?
I want to be a little bit sad.
Okay,
today.
fine. I'll pick something else. My cat died yesterday. I am
cat is negative, usually.
crying myself to sleep in the bathroom. What about that? Okay, so now that we have a pretty sad situation here, I can click send, and it actually sent this query, and I got the response, and it says that let me actually zoom into that really quickly.
This is interesting. 0.0001 positive.
Between 0 and 1 is like super low sentiment. It's probably the bathroom that kind of took it all the way down.
It's the dying cat.
Yeah. So now, okay, so you can see that you can make an HTTP call very easily, right, and get a response. Now, we also have SDKs, so I wanted to show you how you can consume that for an SDK as well. So in order to do that, don't look at that yet, I created a small application, let me see, and what this application does is you can ask it for news. Let's say I can type Orlando, and it actually goes to a different cognitive service, a Bing News Search cognitive service, and it gives me all kinds of news related to Orlando. But what I would like to do is see which ones of those are positive, neutral, or negative, so that maybe I can track how my brand is doing, or how different aspects of, maybe even Ignite, I can check how Ignite is doing. So
every day, technically.
Yeah, I can check every day and see the sentiment over time, right? That would be pretty nice. So now, so I have already written this application. So we're just going to plug in the sentiment and the key phrases aspect of it. And I'm using the SDK. So first of all, I create a client. You can see here. Oops, sorry. Let me just kind of. So I create a client, and I'm going to provide the Azure region and the subscription. I don't expect you to learn the API, or I just want you to see that how easy it is to consume. And ahead of time, I created a place where I am going to consume the sentiment. I'm going to, and I just have like my little code snippet here just to make it really quick instead of me typing a bunch of code.
So what does it mean?
Okay, so let me actually, the first like 4 or 5 lines, this first 4 or 5 lines, all they are doing is just converting my array of strings into the format that the text analytics API expects, right? Okay. Once again, not super interesting code. I mean, you can go to the documentation and look at it. And then this one is the one that is actually making the call to the service. So it grabs all this HTTP call without me having to worry about how to write HTTP calls on C#, let's say, right?
And it returns a number between 0 and 1 as an output.
Yeah, more or less, because I am sending actually an array of strings. In this case, I'm sending just the titles of the documents. I could have sent the content of them too. Okay. So it's going to return me an array of sentiment scores, pretty much. And I'm going to do let's return that result. And I'm going to copy that code, and I'm going to do the same thing, but I'm going to actually query for the key phrases. It's an asynchronous method, and I think that's it. I mean, really, it's just a few lines of code, and I can build this and run it. Now, let's see what happens. So it will be, okay, so let's actually run it. Okay, so I'm going to try Orlando again. Let's see. So, okay, very interesting. Now you can see I have a very nice graph on the right that shows me the results in a visual format. Also, the items got colored, so the positive stuff like Orlando Magic are healthy as training camp opens. So that's a very positive thing, right? So look at the negative ones. Orlando mass shooting, right? So that's obviously very negative. But let's try, let's say, Ignite. That's always kind of scary when you're checking how you are doing in front of the world. Okay. The good news is there is a lot of positive and neutral and very little negative. The top sentiment score, CEO of Ignite, hope challenges her young clients. So that's some other Ignite. Okay, so.
It's a marathon.
Oh, it's a marathon, okay. Let's look at this one that has Satya's picture, live blog. Satya Nadella lays out Microsoft vision at Ignite this morning. right? So that's very positive vision. And then on the negative, how Macaroni Grill destroyed Ignite Restaurant Group. Okay, so that's not this Ignite, so that's always good. So now we can always see on the left here what are the top keywords or key phrases that we extracted from the API. So we can see that there is a strong relationship between Ignite and Microsoft, which makes sense, right, because of the Ignite conference going on. Okay, so we went from signing up to the service all the way to consuming it in really just a few minutes, right? Most of the time I spent just doing the UI so that it will look nice for you, ahead of time. So very, very easy to consume. Now, people, I have 3 case studies or 3 cases where people are using this in reality. This is a team at Microsoft. It's a team that creates internal tools. They came to us and said, look, we really would like to know how we're doing with supporting cases, right? And we want to track if an issue is problematic, and also like how people, like our customer support representatives, are responding to these issues. So for every email or case that comes in, they're tracking sentiment, and for every email or that goes out in response, they are also tracking the sentiment, right? They're tracking it over time, and actually, can you go back just a second? And for different regions, and they can quickly say, oh, in this particular region, for this particular topic, things seem a little bit worse than usual, and then maybe we should investigate. They even generate alerts. So when an issue seems like super negative, right, like someone really mad or something, they raise a flag and say, really, you should take care of this one right away, right? So that's actually very exciting, and then they can keep a very good customer support of these internal tools. 2 other examples that are very different. Brainshark is a company that does simulations to train salesmen. So they put a HoloLens on, and then they can see these avatars, and the whole concept is that the salesperson or the person that is training to be a salesperson has to pitch the product or whatever to these virtual customers, right? And it's actually very interesting. They're using several cognitive services. For instance, they're using the face and emotion APIs to track the expression of the salesperson. And at the same time, they are tracking also the sentiment of what the person is saying. And then they can see if there is a correlation, right? So if there is a correlation, that's a good score. Now, if the person is saying, oh, yeah, this is a great product, right? Then there is not a good correlation because they are not excited while they are saying a very positive sentence, and then they can improve their sales skills. On another case, we have Blue Bolt. This is very different scenario. In this case, they're using the key phrase extraction capabilities. Blue Bolt creates Azure search solutions, right, where they go and index a bunch of files or documents. And what they wanted to do is to enrich the index for Azure search. They actually extract the keywords out of the documents, and then they create a new field that has these key phrases, and now they can perform strict queries where they can say like, oh, only show me the documents where, I don't know, ibuprofen is a keyword, let's say, right? So then they can do a really good query.
We're talking about text analytics right now because we just announced today at Ignite that text analytics evolved from a preview phase to general availability. So now it's the full maturity level in various regions for one of these capabilities, and we'll show you later all the other announcements for cognitive services. There's one element, however, because here we're talking about understanding what's the sentiment of a sentence. But as discussed, when you say open the door, close the door, you need to go one step further because you need to have the machine understanding what's the intent and not just the sentiment of what you say. So how can we go one step further through that?
That's a great point, Gianpolo. So good thing you asked that because we have just the perfect slide after this one. So, okay, there it is. Okay, so when you are talking, right, to a machine, let's say in a bot, for instance, right, and you can be asking questions or performing commands, there are 2 concepts that are very important. One is that there are many ways in which we can express an intent, right? So for instance, I could say in this, let's say that we want to create an airport application, so next time we come to Orlando, we don't get lost. And we may say like, when does flight F32 arrive, right? That's a question, very clear. There are many ways to ask that question. I could say, when is flight AF32 coming, right? So arrive, coming, I mean, different words, but they have the same intent. So the idea is that we may have different sentences that need to be classified into different intents, right? Some sentences are asking the schedule of an airline. Other ones may be asking where is the closest, where is the food court. Other ones, where is the bathroom, right? So each of them have different intents. And I should point out, so we mentioned what intents are, but in each of these, let me call them functions to make the analogy to computer systems, usually there are parameters, right? So I may need arrival information, that's the intent, and then the flight number, in this case AF32, is the entity that we're interested in. If I am given the intent and the entities, this is trivial, right? Then I know what method to run to query that information.
So you need to train the machine to understand what's the intent behind the scenes and the entities.
That is correct. And we have a system or a cognitive service that is the Language Understanding Intelligence Service. Sometimes it's referred to as LUIS. It's the same as my name. I did not name it.
You are the API.
No, I didn't write the API either. So the way that the system works is you teach it just like teaching a child. You teach it by example, right? So you say, okay, I'm going to define these concepts or these intents and entities. Let's say flight arrival. And then I'm just going to provide you a bunch of examples of how somebody may ask that question, right? And then the system will learn, right? It will learn to classify language because it will find patterns in these examples that match closely what other expressions that maybe it has never seen look like. And then you can kind of recycle, you have this cycle where you can improve the system over and over time.
So can we see a little bit more?
Of course, we can see a little bit more. So let's go to machine 8. So here, I have created like the hello world of language understanding. So just to save us a little bit of time, I created an intent ahead of time, arrival information. And this is the dashboard where you can do the training or provide examples. So here, for instance, I gave it 3 examples. When does flight in F32 arrive? And that was one example. Another way to say when a flight arrives may be when is, I don't know, AX34 coming, right? Someone may ask something like that. And then, so it says, okay, so that looks like, I categorized it with like 30% probability that was arrival information. So that's not very high, but it only has 4 examples so far, right? So as you provide more and more examples, the probability that it will categorize that correctly will increase over and over, right? So
and
AX34, we can actually tell the system, if I click on this here, that it's actually a flight number. So ahead of time, I told it there is an entity called flight number, so I can tag it, right? So it's giving it the information so that it can learn. I could create a new entity. Actually, no, let's not leave that. Let's save that. And, or let's create a new intent that may be like location query. So I may want to find out the location of something.
The bathroom.
The bathroom, right? Where is the bathroom, right? Where is the bathroom? And I could create an entity that is called place and then mark bathroom as a place entity as well, right? And I could continue to provide examples and then train the system. We're not going to train it right now. Sure, this is fine. So then we can train the system. It will learn the patterns and then publish an endpoint. Once again, it's an HTTP URL. And then I can just make calls to it, and then the response will be, okay, so that's flight information, or that's arrival information, or location information, whatever intent it is. We can actually, we may be able to test it even with those examples. Okay, maybe we'll train it. I don't expect it to be very good right now, because once again, okay, so few labels. Okay, so we don't have enough labels to do the training, which is expected, right? We only have like 3 or 4, so I should provide more examples. Later on, we will show you a completed solution that actually does this coding and training.
So let's switch.
Okay, so if I go to 6.
Give me a second.
Okay, are you ready?
Yeah, it's working.
Yeah, okay.
Perfect. So the important point here is that we had the opportunity to have the machines understanding what's the intent of text. But we realized that often, sometimes we're not just typing things. As I presented earlier, we were able to directly say things and have the system being able to do the speech-to-text capabilities. And of course, the holy grails of interaction with machines is not only typing things and being understood, but also saying things and being understood as well. This is where we've got all the speech capabilities related to cognitive services. Think about, as mentioned earlier, the ability to do simple speech-to-text, like whatever I say becomes written in the screen. The second aspect being who is speaking, and can I have this kind of virtual fingerprint of me with my voice and associate that to my ID and say, okay, Gianpaolo is speaking right now, and then when Luis speak, the ability for the system to understand that it's not me, but Luis. And the third aspect being the ability to go one step further, because earlier I presented translator and I was in the room, and of course you're listening, and so it's a perfect condition to have the speech-to-text capabilities. But does it happen often? Yes, when you're in a meeting room, but sometimes you need to have the ability to have commands while you're driving a truck, or if you are in a very noisy manufacturing power plant, or outside in an airport. Airport was a good example, in fact. So how can we teach systems to filter all these noisy things in order just to understand what I say? Because I think you tried, maybe with your phone, to have commands and ask something. Sometimes it doesn't catch anything because you're just in the middle in a train station or things like that. And this is exactly what custom speech do. It's the ability for you to bring your data, because it's one of the customizable services, to train it, to say, hey, this, I really want to do this scenario, and here are the most important words. And you need system to understand that even if I'm in the middle of an airport, you need to understand what I'm asking. And so I'm going to train you and add additional information. In parallel, the custom speech service is also able to understand, not in a noisy environment, but in a quiet environment, but very complex words. Think about medicine, chemical names, or physical components, which are usually not easily understood by a machine because it's not well used, or a very complex queue product you're having in your company that was very esoteric name. And the service just does that. It asks, tell me what you want to have in terms of main keywords. I can learn, you bring me some information, and then I'm able to help you understanding what you're saying. That is correct. And the process for you to train a custom speech service is, in this case, right, you get higher precision, but you have to roll up your sleeves a little bit. You have to go to perhaps the location where you expect the person to be using the application and record and provide commands, right? So where is, when is flight X and XYZ coming, or where is the bathroom? But at the same time, I'm hearing the airplanes and everything going on, right? Maybe it's a drive-through and I have to record in the drive-through information with the right frequencies and such with the noise there. So I collect a lot of data or recordings, and then I also have to provide the labels. I have to provide what people are saying in each of these cases, right? Once I have the speech and the labels, I can bring it into the system and train a model. And this model is going to have higher precision thanks to that, right? So then I deploy it, and then I can continue to adapt it as I have more data entries. One interesting example here is for Human Interact, who created the game Starship Commander. So a short story, this is an interactive video game in which you are in the space and there are lots of alien names and weird sentences, but as it's an interactive story game, you need effectively to say, talk to these aliens, and the aliens have very weird names. So how can we have the machine understanding these weird things? And this is exactly why they're using custom speech. So we're going to see the video.
The other machine?
I need to wait.
There we go.
Give me a second.
So think about this. How often are you alive when the dawn of a new medium comes out? I knew that I had to be a part of VR because there are no rules for what VR should be. Starship Commander is a choose-your-own-adventure VR narrative that uses natural language processing, so you can actually have a real conversation with the characters.
I'm Sergeant Sarah Pearson. I've been assigned to your wing today.
When we started making Starship Commander, we had to figure out how do we get technology that can understand what a person's saying so that we can have these new narrative experiences. We're a science fiction game. We come up with new words. No off-the-shelf software could let us put in custom words.
Who are the Echnians?
In our story, the bad guys are called the Echnians. And every time we said Echnian, it would come up with really weird words that were similar to other things that you would say. And so it would get confused all the time. So we needed to make sure that we could supply our own script. We started using Microsoft Cognitive Services to power the back end of Starship Commander.
Looks cool.
Once we plugged custom speech service into Starship Commander, I had tears in my eyes when I was playing it because it's like, oh my God, this is it. This is the experience we want.
Open the hatch.
Voice print accepted. Welcome, Commander.
You can essentially put your script in there and it knows, oh, these are the ways that people are going to talk. And these are the phrases that they're going to say.
Cool. What's my mission?
Must be something pretty important.
And then the second thing too was the intent detection. With Lewis, you basically give it a couple statements. After you've given it a couple statements, you crunch it and you start typing in your own statements, and it's shockingly scary how good it picks up even stuff that you didn't put in there.
Computer, use autopilot and let's be on our way.
Autopilot engaging.
I've never seen an opportunity like this, where there's a wide open playing field, no one's written the rules yet, there's going to be tons of amazing software out there, and I just can't wait to see what other people write.
All right.
6.
Okay, so we're 6.
So you saw it in the video, how they did it. Basically, it's exactly what we said. They've been combining on one side the ability to understand what people are saying with custom speech on one side, speech to text, complex words like Echnians and other ones, and then being able to use the text and with language understanding intelligence services have the right intents and entities which are going to open specific path of the game and continue to play. So through that, we're going to show you as well one example about how we're going to use custom speech in a very noisy environment. And from the beginning, we're talking about this airport, strangely, I don't know why. But we're going to show you a simple interface in which we had people asking things in a very noisy airport. And you'll be able to see the difference between what's usually kept by a normal baseline service of speech to text and what would be the different service who's able to catch that with custom speech. So through that, I'm going to open
so actually
the view.
8. All right.
It's there. So do you see the screen?
Yeah, I think, oh, sorry. What's going on?
Should come. 8, let me try again. 6. And then 8.
Sorry.
Fingers crossed.
What's going on?
No 8 anymore.
No 8 anymore. Let me reconnect it here.
Yeah, let's try one last time. Otherwise, I will show it directly.
On your machine?
Yeah.
Okay.
Ah, it appears.
Okay.
Awesome.
Okay.
So those are different sentences. I'm going to take that one and see what it does.
Show me all flights from Pittsburgh to Boston, both direct and connecting, that depart Pittsburgh after 7 p.m.
So 3 things are appearing on the screen. You will see on the left the baseline, all flights from Pittsburgh to Boston. And you see some differences. For example, depart Pittsburgh. It was the moment in which there was a sound and the background voice. And it detected as a baseline as Martin Pittsburgh, which would be his friend, I don't know who, which in fact is depart Pittsburgh. And you see that when we're combining the speech-to-text and the language understanding, which is on the below of the screen, you see the intent. And you see on the left that it's understanding the intent flight information. So it's still catching it, but at 75%, and identifying Boston and Pittsburgh. So at least you've got these two elements. But on the other side, you've got the confidence at 94%, nearly 95%. And on top of the destination and origins, which are the entities, you've got one additional entity, which is after 7 p.m. So think about the capabilities to have a system being able to way more understanding things based on the fact that the ears the system has are way more accurate. And so not only we're able to think about how we can create apps, but also making a step back and saying, hey, what if we were able to see exactly how all these bots are happening into airports, and we can combine all the telemetry information of these systems with intelligent bots into different airports if we had all of them together and connected, and have smart visualization about the number of conversation, or if the customer is satisfied, because you can always ask for the people who are asking questions if they're happy or not happy, but you could also simply use text analytics, for example, to know if what they say in the end was positive or negative. And the good point of the difference between providing an interface in which people click and try to find information is that you're assuming that the person on the page was effectively looking for something in the page. But sometimes you're just lost and you're clicking randomly. So having the ability to capture what people are typing and understanding that with the key phrases of text analytics is going to provide you way more context about what they want to do. And this is why we've got visualization with specific keywords, key phrases, you're extracted, and then being able to have more context into that. And you can then tweak elements and try to find, okay, what are the main intents which are requested, what people are asking, and if they're satisfied over time, and even being able to find directly in the airports if people are happy on one section and unhappy on the other, and trying to have the system being learned and tuned to reply in a better way. Because in the end, when we're talking about language understanding, Luis talked about it earlier, you need to create something, have the bot available, but then you need to retrain it, because the first bots will maybe say 50% or 20% of the time, sorry, I don't understand what you want, because the question, you cannot imagine everything. But you're able to capture what have been all the questions and being able to retrain that with one step further.
That is correct, Gianpolo. So as a matter of fact, I mentioned earlier that we were going to show you a more completed language understanding model, right? So this is what it looks like. As you can see, it has a lot more examples, right? The probabilities are higher because it has a lot more examples to train. But also, there is something interesting, which is that as I pick different intents, let's say I pick, I don't know, onboard information or something like that, right? I can see which utterances had low probability. These are things that were not part of my training data. These are things that people actually said, like someone said, can I do Wi-Fi calling? And the system wasn't really sure what was going on. It said like, look, the highest probability that I have there is like 49%. I think it's onboard information, but I'm not absolutely sure. So the good news is that because the system is kind of keeping track of which ones are the low probability expressions, then I can come and monitor those, right? And then I can say, no, that's not onboard information. That's information about whether there is Wi-Fi or not, right? Or I can confirm, yes, you were right. This sounds about right, and then provide this virtuous feedback cycle to the application so that it can get better and better over time, and also so that you can have a better idea of what people are actually expressing or saying to your bot. Okay, so how are we doing with time? I think we have like 9 minutes or so before questions. So I wanna show you just a fun bot that we created at Microsoft. We have a week where we can do whatever we want. So Gianpolo and I said, you know what? Let's create a bot, but let's create a bot for ourselves. So it's a digital assistant. So right now, when I'm away from the office, I'm a program manager, so half of my job is just pointing people to other people. So we figured, that I can probably be replaced by a bot pretty easily. Why not create one that can take care of business while I'm away from the office, right? So we created the UF bot, the out-of-office assistant, and let me show it to you. Okay, sorry. Let me actually...
You refresh it.
Yeah, it's okay. I'll just say hi.
The important point is really behind the scenes, like for this project at least, it was more about we're having, of course, tons of activities, and we've got one piece of it in which we receive emails when we're here and when we're not here about, hey, cognitive services, as mentioned, is a set of 30 different APIs and services, which means that you've got 30 different teams which are working a lot, and you've got tons of resources. And we often had how to get started with that, or I need to talk to the person working on text analytics or language understanding.
Let's say that, right? Who knows about text analytics, right? So I'm the owner of text analytics, but I'm not in the office, so they say, well, okay, so if you want an expert in text analytics, Nagy is in the office, this is his email, you can take care of him, right? And then they don't have to interrupt me while I'm on vacation or at a conference, right? You can actually ask it information like, where is the documentation, let's say on computer vision, which is another cognitive service that we didn't talk about today, but someone may want to know where to find that documentation so that they can continue with their project, and then the system identifies the intent, searching for documentation, it identifies the entity, which is computer vision in this case, and then with that, it can go to a table or a database and find the right place for the documentation. And the good thing about the bot framework is that it even enables you to do back and forth communication. So the system can actually ask me back, is the documentation provided helpful to you? I'm going to say no. It is helpful, but it's actually the right link, but just to show the back and forth. Then it can, in this case, escalate and find a person that knows about the topic while I'm away from the office.
And so how do you handle the people aspect? How the bot is able, I think you might have a knowledge base in which you're mapping the topics with.
Right, so I have a knowledge base, but that's the easy part, right? Like having a database, performing queries on a database is very simple. The more interesting part is dealing with the language, right? But the language understanding service helps us do that. It can even do set appointments with me while I'm away from the office. Let's try that. I would like to meet Luis. Luis, let's pretend that you want to meet me, okay?
Which is convenient.
Yeah, of course.
Because you're
what is the email of attendees? So I'm going to put give a tag at microsoft.com. And what it's going to do right now, it's going to take a little bit of time because it's actually going to go to the Exchange server. What is it saying? Yeah, sure, 30 minutes, fine. It's going to go to the Exchange server and look for slots that where we're both free at the same time after I come back to the office.
So it's not just providing information, it's really performing tasks with basically Outlook and Exchange.
Yeah. It can be as interesting or as boring as you want it to be, right? And okay, so it found some slots. Okay, the reason this looks like 5 o'clock in the morning is that this is Pacific time. So these are like 8:30 in the morning.
Or you wake up very early.
Or just wake up very early. Let's actually pretend that we're going to meet on Tuesday, and then in a second or two you will get an email appointment from the bot in your on your phone.
What a nice reminder I'll have 30 minutes before when I'll be in Seattle to wake up at 4:30 to say, hey, you've got the meeting. You need to cancel it then. But it's actually really sending me the meeting request, so you'll see it in the... And you can add additional capabilities, like if you're having rooms which are affected at the resources, it can also look into the rooms and the buildings and say, okay, you know what, this room is available right now, I can book it as well. And according to the number of people, it could find the right room and the right size or the right materials which are present in the room if I need a specific screen or specific speakers.
Okay, perfect. I want to make one last note, which is, we have shown you today, like tools that you can use to understand language. We have shown you today tools that you can use to better understand text, sentiment, and so forth. There is a lot more, right? Time is short, really, to show all of the cognitive services that we have. But the main message that I want you to go away with is that you can help us invent the future, right? As some of the t-shirts said, like the best way to predict the future is to invent it. That's very true, right? If we want to create applications that go to the next level, that become a little bit more humane, we're providing the tools, and hopefully you can help us invent the future. Thank you very much.
I talked about the announcements with text analytics to put you updated because we just made the blog post today. We're having a couple of major milestones we reached for Ignite. The first one, as mentioned, is text analytics, which is going in general availability. We also announced that Bing Custom Search and Bing Search V7 are currently going to be in general availability next month. So it's going to come extremely soon. Short story, we're in the search capabilities, the Bing APIs. Bing Search, of course, is the new version, is the updated one, V7, in which you're able to have the search queries. New search was one of these examples we've seen in the demonstration, but you can also do image search, web search, news search, and the last one, which would be image, video, news, and web search. So we've got 4 of them. And custom search is basically a service in which you're customizing the layer of Bing Search, but just for specific website, whitelisting, having just a slice of the web, and for example, trying to find the right information for just one type of info or details or verticals. So announcement of the V7 for that. We plan also to have language understanding intelligence service and bot framework, which are currently in preview in general availability in the upcoming month. It would be by the end of the year or beginning of next year, but like very close. So we're very committed to launch that in general availability. And also we had updates. We didn't had the chance to talk a little bit about Q&A Maker, which is the service basically in which you're putting Word document of questions, answers, or even a website URL, and it's directly extracting that, creating the knowledge base for your bot in 5 seconds. And there are demos and also sessions related to that, so please go there if you're interested into this. And as well as expansion of some cognitive services into new regions, and we're still being extremely committed to add new regions for all our capabilities. Yeah. And the blog post is aka.ms/cstag.
That's right.
And by the sessions, yeah, for your information, what's happening in the next hours and days. So we talked here about language and speech, and I hope it was useful. And don't hesitate to discuss with us if you want to have more information about one specific of these topics. We're going to have one session later today about vision and speech, so 2 other capabilities which are extremely close as well. Have to have intelligent kiosks, being able to identify who you are and what you say. And you're going to have that at 12:30. We've got theater session talking about vision capabilities as well. Tomorrow we'll be on the other side of the scope of the APIs with the search announcement and capabilities and a little bit of knowledge at 9 a.m. And then, of course, we've got tons of sessions about bot framework, how to use Q&A Maker, how to build sophisticated agents which are not only being able to book rooms, identify people, and map to knowledge base, but also when your customers are unhappy, you could even use text analytics to say, hey, there is a problem, and automatically escalate to a human agent. So this is where, going back to Microsoft AI amplifying human ingenuity, it's really about like having the bots, the machine, the system, the AI to help people to have more context about the conversation and do more. So this is where everything comes together.
Okay, so why don't we go to Q&A? I'm also going to put the email. You can send us email if you're not able to catch us today.
My email is gianpaolo.battaglia@microsoft.com, which is super long.
That's the longest email that I have.
So I created this alias, basically askai@microsoft.com, and it's going to me and to my colleague dedicated to bots, which is just there. And it goes directly to us. So seriously, any question, we'd love to help you, to engage with you with the product teams and help you do more and be happy.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Yes, sir.
Yeah, just wondering if there's any plans to rev the SDKs for .NET on the speech APIs. I know that the C# SDK didn't actually support any of the like WebSocket protocols for conversation transcription. Is that being updated?
So we don't have anything to announce at this moment, but I'll take the feedback and yeah.
Okay.
And we can put you in contact with the dedicated product team for speech API, for example, which could give you more visibility about where they're heading.
Yes, that'd be good.
Email,
Okay.
contacts.
Yeah, just
5
contact
minutes.
us and we'll put you in touch.
Thank
Awesome,
you.
thanks.
Your example, you showed this in the get keyword async call.
Oh, yeah, sure. Good.
There's documents.add. Can you add documents from your local drive and send it to that service? You pass in a string from UI, but can you add references to documents on your local?
Oh, I see. I think the question is whether you can kind of customize the model with your own data sets. Is that what it is?
Well,
Okay. Yeah, not the text analytics API, not right now. But that's a good point, right? Let me provide a concrete example. So in the gaming industry, when somebody says this game is bad, they don't mean that it's bad, it's actually good. So in some cases, people may want to customize that. Yeah, so that's something we're working on, but it's not there yet.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
You had a slide showing a person in an airport speaking and translating that from, speech to text. And then you had two columns. One, the speech to text.
Yes,
Right.
a baseline.
Returned, and then the custom.
Yeah.
How did you actually correct the text from the speech to text so that I think it misspelled Pittsburgh or had a different word for Pittsburgh and then it corrected to
Of
Pittsburgh?
course. So we used on one side we used the baseline common speech to text we took randomly, and we're just using the API and we make an API call into. It was the benchmark, a simple one. And the other one basically was really using custom speech, and behind the scenes you've got the full model which has been created with just the sounds related to the airport and the system which has been trained to have that. So we're not taking the first usual X solution to have basic speech to text and then say, hey, let's correct it. We really use two different services and put them together to see the difference.
I see. And what was the second service that you used?
Custom speech service.
So the second one is the custom speech service, which is like the full solution. The first one was a neutral, random, unknown service, but you just to use as a baseline, which doesn't have the customization part. So then it's all about, and this is interesting as well, all the customization services. So you've got, for vision, you've got custom vision service, you've got custom speech service, you've got language understanding, and you've seen for language understanding that you've got, you can make API calls and do everything scripting, but we've got an interface in which you're going to upload information and have this UI in which you can train, and you've got also an interface called, I think it's custom speech or Chris.ai, in which you've got also the interface for custom speech. I can even show it. Yeah. In which you're going to basically go directly and see how you're going to Chris.ai. Let me close that. Okay. You should see it. Yeah. So I've got the full site. You hijacked my presentation. So it's custom speech in which you have the opportunity to create the account, you're signing in, and then you're going to do all the, let me connect, hopefully. Let me show you. Yes, I accept. And you've got the full interface. Yeah, continue. I will put everything, but I wanted just to show the acoustic models. I will log in 2 minutes and then showing you exactly what we're doing here. But basically, you've got the full interface in which you're going to upload the samples and train it and have the retraining phase. And then you'll have the endpoint we're going to use a little bit like what you had with language understanding. And then basically, you're going to have the system in which you ingest anything new and having the system trained to do that. And the best example to use it, if you say, okay, but how does it look? There is PowerPoint as well. I showed you translation initially, in which you have presentation translation. And it's starting the subtitles. What's awesome as well here is that it's also using custom speech if you want. And I think this is the best example. When you start the subtitles here, it says, oh, do you want French or French-English to translate? But if you do English to English, you've got that. Customized speech recognition. And if you do this, well, it's okay because I can click on it. It's basically going to look. So first, it has already used lots of training sets for that. But if I click, I will click here. Nothing will happen right now, but it's basically going to look into my full presentation, look into all the words of the presentation, even the complex words which are super weird. I might have put even in the speaker notes. It's going to use that. And whenever I'm going then, after 5 minutes, it's going to catch that. And when I'm going to present and say, eti melito propylo porozen, which is, I don't know, chemical component they just invented, if it has been written, it would appear directly with the right name automatically because it's using the custom speech capabilities thanks to that. So I think it's an awesome way to test it very easily, to say, okay, what if you could even have that for specific scenarios? Luis talked about drive-through, like when people are asking about Sunday fries and blah, blah. No one is able to understand that easily. And people usually say, okay, can you repeat? And if I'm in the kitchen, there is lots of noise. And every second in which I'm asking to repeat and rephrasing that, multiplied by 1 million people in the drive-through, it becomes super complex and lots of money lost because we need to have that. Having systems near saying, okay, 5 burgers, 8 fries in 2 seconds, it reduces time and still helps people to do more with AI.
Interesting. Yeah, that's great. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Questions?
I'll be ready to take this back and demonstrate it for some domain decision makers. Is there really good examples of labs walking through and being able to create some of these examples that I could customize to look for?
Yeah, absolutely.
We can show you.
So actually for each of the, well, Gianpolo is going to the website. So if you go to the Cognitive Services website, the documentation is really good. They all have some kind of quick start. And if they have a dashboard, they have documentation that kind of guides you on how to create your first bot or your first language model. It should be pretty accessible. And as I mentioned, you can, most of them, or actually all of them, I believe, have like a free tier, so you can go and get started right away. Like you could get started right away, and you don't have to like have a monetary commitment or anything like that.
And we've got a huge GitHub repository in which there are tons of apps you can use, leverage, and take the code and reuse it. We had also, you'll see later today, the presentation about vision, and we've got an intelligent kiosk, and it's on GitHub. And we've got companies using directly on GitHub and changing things and just pushing it live. It's working, it's ready to go, and it's extremely straightforward. So everything is on the GitHub. We've got the documentation pages for each of the APIs, and at the same time, the GitHub repository in which you can see all these elements very easily. Yeah. For the website, just for your information, it's azure.com/cognitive as the short URL. And whenever it's going to work, you'll see, yeah, Wi-Fi is unhappy with me these days. Let me try here.
Anyway, you go to azure.com/cognitive, and it's pretty well documented for each of the services. Do you have another question? Yeah.
Question. This is regarding Lewis. When I initially started using Lewis for kind of an open bot, you can ask the bot anything.
Right.
There's a limitation on intents of only 20 intents.
Yeah.
Do you have has Lewis allowed for more intents, and what would you recommend if you're kind of building an open bot?
Yes.
Are there certain patterns that you'd use to kind of get around that limitation?
That's actually a really, really good question. The number of intents, I don't remember what is it today, but it has been raising constantly. It's certainly more than 20 now. But let's say that it's 100, right? It's still a finite number. So then your follow-up question was very appropriate. Okay, so what do I do? We have seen some patterns that people do sometimes. It's in generally people don't need like 1,000 or 1,000,000 intents. Certainly you can pick like the most popular intents, but a lot of the times what they are looking is looking for information, for instance, right? So sometimes combining language understanding with a service like Azure Search is a powerful thing, right? Because even if Azure Search may not have semantic understanding, or the bot doesn't understand the semantics of every document that you have in a knowledge base, right? It can identify what you are interested in and then perform a query in Azure Search and may say, look, I may not know exactly how to answer your question, but these are 10 documents where you will find your answer, right? So that's a common combination between bots, language understanding, and search capabilities.
Yeah, one, I guess, additional thing to that is, if you're able to extract the key phrases, do you have any service to potentially find synonyms for key phrases?
So not synonyms, but we used to have one, and then there was not that much demand for it, so we actually removed it. But we have Bing Entity Search that allows you to understand what an entity is. Actually, if I may do a quick demo here. What are you doing? Okay.
Let me go to your...
hold on, let me go. Can you see my screen? Okay, so I'm gonna go to Microsoft.com/cognitive or Azure.com/cognitive. They'll take you to the same place just to see. And this is a service we didn't have a chance to mention in detail, but let's say two services that are interesting here. One is the entity linking intelligence service that allows me to find entities and the context of those entities. So in this example, for instance, there is some text related to Mars, and you can see how the entities got highlighted after running it through the service. But the interesting thing is that I can identify, if I look at the JSON that is returned, that sometimes when the term Mars was being used there, it was used in the context of the Roman god of war, and in other cases it was referred to the planet. So it uses the context around the sentence to tell you which one is the Wikipedia ID that refers to that one. If you combine that with another service, the Bing Entity Search service,
which is why it's interesting to see the two other sessions, because we'll get...
Yeah, there is a lot more, right? I could do something like, I could take, let's say I found an entity which is a medicine, omeprazole, let's say. So if I do a search here, it will identify information about that. So now I have information about what that is, like even a little summary of it. And in the JSON format, what I like the best is that if I look at it, it even tells me the type of entity. In this case, it's a drug, right? So we can start to go deeper into the meaning of what the person is talking about.
Awesome.
Thank you. Yes,
Other
sir.
question? Yes.
Yeah, so you mentioned sentiment with text.
Yes.
So how about sentiment with tone of voice, and maybe if you can determine sentiment with their tone of voice plus a vocabulary that's positive or negative?
So we don't have that capability today in our speech capabilities. Certainly it could be built, but we don't have it today.
And then we had people asking us, but are you able to detect irony?
Or sarcasm, right? It's another one where, yeah.
And then typically for the custom speech service, typically how many minutes or hours of training does it need to do
for the custom speech service?
Yeah.
So
it's a good one.
That's a good one. I'm not really sure. I think the reason we are kind of hesitating to answer this question is it depends. In a lot of these cases, it depends, and we recommend that you go and play with the service. Depends on the complexity of the audio, right? It depends on how many entities or how many intents are you going to distinguish, right? Is it just distinguishing between 3 different ones or 100 different ones? What are the frequencies? What is the acoustics of the location? It depends.
But
right?
this is exactly like ask AI at Microsoft.com or gianpaolo.battaglia@microsoft.com.
And give us your scenario with more detail, and then maybe we can provide some guidance. Yeah.
And I just wanted to show something. It's the end, so we're good. We're among us. Just if I say my name is Battaglia, it's writing correctly because I just use custom speech to train it to look in my name. And if I say just ask AI at Microsoft.com, so you had the Ask AI appearing. I mean, it wouldn't technically write Ask AI everything in one sentence, in one word, if it wasn't reading the text initially. So you've got this. I think it's extremely powerful.
Any additional questions? Well, thank you for staying until the end. We really appreciate it. Please rate our session.
Thank
we
you.
really appreciate it. Thank you.